game.
Over on Spawn Point this weekend, we have a look at Disney Infinity, which is doing some interesting things. And I'm sure there's a lot of parents out there who are wondering, how does it compare to Skylanders? And if you don't know, Skylanders is a massive deal for younger gamers. So Hex, is Disney Infinity worth taking out a bank loan for?
Well, that's a good question. And if you've never played one of these kinds of games before, it sits somewhere between a RPG platformer and a kind of collectible game. Buying the complete range of Disney characters is pretty costly. Depending on which packs you buy them in, you'll be looking at $300 to $400 to buy the game and all 17 launch figures. And then there are more figures coming later in the year on top of that. But you don't need to buy all the characters. You can complete the game with just the characters in the starter pack. There'll just be a few little areas and sections that are locked off unless you have those characters to access them.
Yes, however, if you are a completionist and you need to have them all, then it's a pretty big sticker price. And that cost is on par with Skylanders. It makes a difference to me that they put a lot of work into the style and detail of these Disney figures. I'm a bit of a figurine collector, Hex, and I think these are quite well made. In fact, I would happily have these sit upon my shelf. They could rest there and I would even dust them. But the biggest factor here is the quality gameplay they've created.
Well, let's start with what comes with the game. You get the base platform and these 3 figures. Just like Skylanders, you drop the figure on the platform and then they appear in the game. But a big difference in Infinity is that each character has their own story campaign.
All hands to the sails!
The Incredibles campaign is pretty much Grand Theft Auto with superpowers. What it does best is walk that perfect line between the fun of reckless destruction while keeping everything wrapped in a child-friendly setting. You can do things like pick up cars and hurl them into buildings, but you'll notice the passengers always jump away to safety.
That said, you shouldn't go expecting too much from the plots.
Thank you, Incredibles, for saving us.
No thanks are necessary. It's all part of the...
Whoa, whoa, whoa. I should be the one thanking the Incredibles.
There are new storylines within the film's settings, but they're pretty bare bones. It's a bit like the Lego film games we've seen where the characters become simplified, cartoony versions of the originals. These thin plots are essentially excuses for the game's missions.
I was surprised at how differently the campaign's played though. Pirates of the Caribbean focuses around naval battles where you use your cannons to blast enemy boats.
Surrender now!
But there's quite a bit of depth to it as you need to get the right line of fire while making sure the rolling waves aren't going to block your shots.
Reload the guns! Down to the locker with ya!
And then there's Monsters University, which taps into American college student rivalries.
Wow! That was kinda cool!
Each one of the 3 campaigns is about 6 hours long too, so there's loads of gameplay here. But the big kicker for me is the Toy Box mode, which mixes shades of Minecraft's world building and Little Big Planet's game creation tools. We were able to put together this Darren-themed obstacle course in just a few hours.
There's a robust amount of tools to build terrain and structures, and then there are the theme discs. When we drop one from Wreck-It Ralph onto our Darren city, suddenly he turned into blocks of cake as the world gets a sugar rush coat of paint.
Yeah, that was awesome, and we've barely touched the surface of game creation tools. You can drop in enemies with specific behaviours, have checkpoints, and change camera angles. It's nuts. I can't wait to see what the community builds down the track. And I was happy to hear that levels built on one console can be accessed by anyone, whether they're playing on a Wii U or a PS3 or a 360.
Yeah, I wish more games did that kind of cross-platform content thing. It's interesting that Disney have invested so much in this game. I heard they had 300 people working on this for 3 years, and I think that shows because when I think of Skylanders, it's just so simple, but this isn't really.
That said, it's still operating off that model where you cannot access every part of the game unless you physically purchase more figurines.
Yeah, and at least if you look at a Lego game, when you get it, you get everything, that's it, and you've got all that content to just unlock and explore, and there's no additional things to consider down the track.
What's he up to now?
Trying to take over the whole frontier, as far as I can tell. One town at a time.
It is interesting, though, that they're holding back on some pretty big franchises with Star Wars and Marvel, and you can almost see the dollar signs if they were to release those each year at Christmas. But that does mean longevity for this game and the power of the Force.
I like that Disney are actually taking games seriously now because besides Epic Mickey, they've been pretty quiet on the games front.
Yes, and as we said, our full review of Disney Infinity will be over on Spawn Point this weekend, but for now, something completely different, an old game reborn with Rise of the Triad.